If you are searching for stories of faith lived out on ancient stones and whispered in the night air of Jerusalem, subscribe now and walk with us each week through the city where lanterns still blaze and hearts still listen. Tonight we stand at Damascus Gate, where this month the merchants have paused, their goods set aside, and the vigil has begun. The night unfolds gently over Jerusalem, and the air at Damascus Gate holds that particular weight that comes when history and prayer press close together. The stone arch rises above you, its Ottoman crenellations dark against a sky scattered with stars, and below, where the steps descend into the heart of the old city, oil lanterns glow with a steady amber light. They hang from iron hooks driven into ancient masonry, and their flames bend slightly in the breeze that moves through the passage, carrying with it the scent of sage and dust and the faint sweetness of jasmine from a hidden courtyard somewhere beyond the walls. The gate is never truly silent, but tonight it has taken on a different quality of stillness, a hush that invites something more than the usual hurry of commerce and transit. Merchants who moments ago called out their wares in Arabic, Hebrew, and English now stand quietly beside their stalls, their hands folded or resting on the edges of wooden crates filled with spices and oils and woven cloth. The lanterns blaze as merchants pause to listen. You approach from the north, where the road slopes down toward the massive gate, and already you can see the soft illumination spilling out from the arch, warming the pale limestone that has stood here for centuries. The walls themselves seem to hold light, absorbing it into their porous surface and giving it back in a gentle glow. This gate has witnessed so much, wave after wave of pilgrims and conquerors, mourners and celebrants, and tonight it witnesses this small gathering of souls who have come not to march or proclaim but simply to be present, to stand in the place where prayers from three traditions rise like smoke and mingle in the darkness above the city. The vigil is not announced with banners or loudspeakers. It is known by word passed quietly through the souks and alleyways, a whisper that this night, at this hour, some will gather to light lanterns and lift their hearts. As you draw closer, the details sharpen. The steps leading down from the gate are worn smooth by countless feet, their edges rounded and dipped in the center where generations have trodden the same path. The stone is cool beneath your hand if you reach out to steady yourself, and it feels solid, enduring, patient. On either side of the passage, small alcoves hold stalls where vendors sell everything from fresh bread to silver jewelry, but tonight many of these spaces are quiet, the goods covered with cloths, the sellers standing back in the shadows with their faces turned toward the center of the vigil. A woman in a dark headscarf adjusts the wick of a lantern hanging from a beam above her stall, and the flame rises a little higher, casting her features in warm relief. She does not speak, but her eyes are soft and thoughtful, and you sense that she too has chosen to pause, to let the ordinary rhythms of buying and selling fall away for a moment. The lanterns themselves are simple, made of tin and glass with handles of twisted wire, but their cumulative light transforms the space. They do not blaze with the harshness of electric bulbs but with a living, breathing luminosity that shifts and dances with the air. Shadows move across the stone, pooling in the crevices and climbing the walls, and the effect is both intimate and expansive, as if the gate has become a threshold not only between the city's quarters but between the visible and the invisible, the spoken and the unspoken. The lanterns blaze as merchants pause to listen, and in that blazing and that pause something opens. You step into the flow of people moving through the vigil space, and though there is no formal procession, there is a rhythm to the gathering. Some stand still, their lips moving in silent prayer. Others walk slowly along the edges of the passage, their hands trailing lightly over the stone as if to touch the accumulated prayers of all who have passed this way. A young man with a kippah stands near one wall, his prayer shawl draped over his shoulders, his eyes closed as he sways gently and murmurs words from the Psalms, words that speak of refuge and steadfast love. Nearby, an elderly Christian woman holds a wooden rosary, her fingers moving bead by bead as she prays, her face lined and beautiful in the lamplight. Further along, a Muslim merchant has spread a small mat on the ground just outside his stall, and he bows in the direction of Mecca, his forehead touching the earth, his breath measured and calm. These prayers do not compete, they do not jostle for space or primacy. They simply rise, each in its own language and form, and the night holds them all. The scent of incense drifts through the air, mingling with the smell of bread baking in a nearby oven and the faint metallic tang of old stone. Someone has lit frankincense, and the smoke curls upward in thin threads, visible in the lantern light, ascending through the arch and out into the open sky. The fragrance is ancient, the same that burned in temples and tents and cathedrals, and it carries with it associations of offering and longing, of the soul reaching toward the divine. You breathe it in and it seems to settle in your chest, grounding you in this moment, this place, this act of standing still and attending. Lanterns blaze as merchants pause to listen, and you realize that the listening is not passive but active, a deliberate turning of the heart toward something deeper than the noise of daily life. What are they listening for? Perhaps for the still small voice that speaks in the silence, the voice that reminds them of mercy and kindness, of their shared humanity, of the possibility that peace is not a distant dream but a present choice. Perhaps they are listening for the whisper of their own souls, for the truth that lies beneath the layers of worry and striving. Perhaps they are listening simply to be reminded that they are not alone, that others, too, come to this gate at night seeking something they cannot name but know they need. You move deeper into the passage and the lanterns continue to mark the way, their flames steady despite the occasional gust of wind. The architecture of the gate is a marvel of strength and grace, the stones fitted together with such precision that even after centuries they stand firm, bearing the weight of walls and time and memory. The arch overhead is broad and high, and it frames the view beyond, a glimpse of the narrow streets that snake through the old city, lit here and there by the glow of shop windows and street lamps, the white stone buildings pressing close together, their flat roofs stacked like steps ascending the slopes of the ancient city. But here, in the threshold of the gate, the focus is inward, downward, into the quiet space where people have gathered to pray. A group of young women sits on the steps, their backs against the wall, their voices low as they share a conversation. They are not part of any organized service, but their presence adds to the texture of the vigil, their quiet laughter and earnest words a reminder that faith is not always solemn, that it can be found in friendship and shared moments as much as in formal liturgy. One of them holds a lantern on her lap, and she tilts it slightly so the light catches the faces of her companions, and they smile at each other, and the warmth of their connection is palpable. You pass by them, and one looks up and meets your gaze, and in her eyes there is a welcome, an acknowledgement that you too belong here, that this space is for anyone who comes seeking. The stones beneath your feet are uneven, and you watch your step as you descend a little further into the gate's interior. The walls here are thick, and the passage narrows slightly before opening again into the broader plaza that lies just inside the old city. Along the walls, niches and recesses hold small offerings, a candle stub, a folded piece of paper with a prayer written in Hebrew, a sprig of olive leaves tied with string. These are not grand gestures but small acts of devotion, tokens left by pilgrims and locals alike, each one a breath of hope, a plea for help, a word of thanks. You do not touch them but you honor them with your attention, recognizing in them the same impulse that has brought you here tonight. Lanterns blaze as merchants pause to listen, and the refrain becomes a kind of anchor, a reminder of what this night is about. The blazing is not violent but generous, a pouring out of light that asks nothing in return. The pausing is not hesitation but intentionality, a choice to stop and be present. And the listening is not empty waiting but receptive openness, a willingness to hear whatever word or silence the night might offer. A man in a long robe and a white turban stands near the center of the vigil space, his hands raised slightly as if in blessing or supplication. He does not address the crowd, he is not leading a service in any formal sense. But his posture speaks of prayer, and those near him seem to draw comfort from his presence. He lowers his hands and places them over his heart, and his lips move in words you cannot hear, but you sense the weight of them, the sincerity. This is not performance, it is an act of the soul, a dialogue with the unseen, and it reminds you that prayer is not confined to specific words or rituals but is as varied as the people who offer it. The wind picks up for a moment, and the lanterns flicker, their flames bending almost horizontal before righting themselves again. The light shifts across the stone and shadows leap and recede, and for a brief instant the gate seems to pulse with life, as if the stones themselves are breathing. The sensation passes, but it leaves you with a sense of wonder, a recognition that this place is alive in ways that transcend the physical, that the accumulated prayers and hopes and sorrows of generations have woven themselves into the very fabric of the gate, making it a living monument not to power or conquest but to the endurance of faith. You think of all the feet that have crossed this threshold, all the eyes that have looked up at this arch, all the hands that have touched these walls. Shepherds and kings, beggars and scholars, soldiers and children, each one carrying their own burden and their own longing. The gate has seen mourning and celebration, arrival and departure, and through it all it has stood, impassive and patient, a witness to the human drama that unfolds in its shadow. Tonight it witnesses this vigil, this gathering of quiet souls who have come to light lanterns and listen, and it offers them the same hospitality it has offered to all who come. A place to stand, a threshold to cross, a moment of shelter between the world outside and the world within. The merchants who have paused their selling are not uniformly somber. Some talk quietly among themselves, their voices a low hum that blends with the ambient sounds of the city. Others lean against their stalls, arms crossed, their expressions contemplative. A few have joined the prayers directly, stepping out from behind their displays of spices and textiles to stand among the worshippers. There is no pressure to participate, no expectation that everyone must pray in the same way or even pray at all. The vigil is an invitation, not a demand, and this generosity of spirit is perhaps its most powerful aspect. It says, "Come as you are, bring what you can, and know that your presence matters." Lanterns blaze as merchants pause to listen, and you wonder what each person hears in the silence, what word or memory or hope rises to the surface of their consciousness. For some, it might be a specific petition, a prayer for healing or provision or reconciliation. For others, it might be a wordless ache, a longing that cannot be articulated but that the heart knows intimately. And for still others, it might be a sense of gratitude, a recognition of blessings received or grace experienced. The vigil holds all of these, and it asks nothing more than that each person bring their honest self, their real need, their genuine heart. You move to one side of the passage and find a place to stand where you can see the full sweep of the scene. From this vantage point, the lanterns form a constellation of light, each one a small star in the darkness, and together they create a field of illumination that draws the eye and lifts the spirit. The faces in the crowd are diverse, reflecting the complex tapestry of Jerusalem itself. Jews and Christians and Muslims, locals and pilgrims, old and young, rich and poor. They do not all share the same beliefs or practices, but they share this moment, this night, this gate, and that sharing is itself a kind of prayer, a wordless affirmation that peace is possible, that coexistence is not only a political ideal but a lived reality, however fragile and contested. The stones of the gate are pockmarked and scarred, bearing the marks of time and conflict. You can see places where bullets have chipped the surface, where old mortar has crumbled and been replaced, where names and symbols have been scratched into the limestone by hands long gone. These marks are not erased or hidden, they are part of the gate's story, a record of pain and resilience. And yet the gate stands and the lanterns blaze and the merchants pause to listen, and in this act of standing and blazing and pausing, there is a defiance of despair, a refusal to let the past dictate the future, a commitment to building something new from the stones of what has been. A child wanders through the crowd, her small hand clutching a lantern almost as big as she is. Her mother follows a few steps behind, watchful but not anxious. The child stops in front of you, tilts her head and smiles, and the purity of that smile is a gift, a reminder that hope is not naive but essential, that innocence is not ignorance but a kind of wisdom. She holds up the lantern, showing it to you as if it were a treasure, and you nod and smile back, and she is satisfied and moves on, her lantern bobbing in the darkness like a firefly. The sound of footsteps echoes off the stone, a steady rhythm that becomes almost musical. Someone is singing softly, a melody in Arabic that speaks of longing and belonging, and though you do not understand all the words, the tone is clear. It is a song of the heart, a song of home. Others pick up the tune, humming along, and the music weaves through the vigil like a thread, connecting voices and souls in a moment of shared beauty. The song does not rise to a crescendo, it remains gentle, almost tentative, as if aware of its own fragility and yet brave enough to be heard. Lanterns blaze as merchants pause to listen, and the listening extends to this song, to the way it rises and falls, to the emotion it carries, to the invitation it offers to join in or simply to receive. The vigil is not static, it is alive with movement and sound and light, a dynamic interplay of presence and absence, speech and silence, action and stillness. It is not a performance but a participation, a collective act of being present to the sacred that dwells in ordinary things. In stone and flame, in breath and footstep, in the meeting of eyes and the touch of hands. You think about the nature of waiting, of standing in one place and allowing time to unfold at its own pace. In a world that rushes and demands and consumes, this kind of waiting is countercultural, even radical. It says that there is value in stopping, in not doing, in simply being. It says that some things cannot be hurried, that the soul has its own rhythm and that wisdom comes not from frantic activity but from attentive stillness. The vigil embodies this, and those who participate in it are practicing a kind of spiritual discipline that is both ancient and desperately needed in the modern world. The air grows cooler as the night deepens and you pull your jacket a little tighter. The lanterns continue to burn, their fuel lasting far longer than you would have expected, as if they, too, are determined to see this vigil through to its end. The crowd has not thinned. If anything, more people have arrived, drawn by the light and the quiet, by the sense that something meaningful is happening here. They come in ones and twos, stepping through the arch with expressions of curiosity or reverence, and they find a place to stand or sit, and they add their presence to the collective whole. A merchant who has been standing near his stall steps forward and approaches the man in the white turban. They speak briefly, their voice is too low to hear, and then the merchant returns to his stall and retrieves a small basket of bread. He moves through the crowd, offering pieces to anyone who will take them, and the gesture is simple but profound, an act of hospitality that echoes the breaking of bread in countless traditions. People accept the bread with nods of thanks, and some tear off a piece and share it with the person next to them, and the act of eating together, even in this informal way, creates a bond, a recognition of shared need and shared nourishment. Lanterns blaze as merchants pause to listen, and you take a piece of bread yourself, its crust warm and slightly rough, its interior soft and fragrant. You chew slowly, savoring the taste, and you think about all the meals that have been shared in this city, all the tables that have been set, all the prayers that have been offered over food. The bread is just bread, but it is also more than bread. It is a sign of care, a token of abundance, a reminder that the body's needs are not separate from the soul's needs, that both must be fed, that both are worthy of attention and respect. The vigil moves toward no particular climax. There is no moment when a leader steps forward to deliver a sermon or call the gathering to order. Instead, the vigil simply continues, each person contributing their own prayer or silence or presence, and the whole becomes greater than the sum of its parts. You realize that this is the beauty of it. There is no agenda, no program, no desired outcome other than the act itself. The vigil is its own purpose, its own reward, and those who participate in it do so not to achieve something but to experience something, to touch, however briefly, the mystery that lies at the heart of all religious longing. You close your eyes for a moment and listen, really listen to the sounds around you. The murmur of voices, the crackle of lantern flames, the distant call to prayer from a minaret somewhere in the city, the whisper of wind through stone corridors. These sounds layer over each other, creating a soundscape that is rich and complex, and you let yourself sink into it, let yourself be held by it. When you open your eyes again, the scene has not changed, but you have, even if only slightly. You are more present, more awake, more aware of the gift of this moment. The lanterns blaze as merchants pause to listen, and you realize that this phrase has become a kind of mantra, a way of naming what is happening here. The blazing speaks of courage and light, of the refusal to let darkness have the final word. The pausing speaks of wisdom and patience, of the recognition that some things cannot be rushed. And the listening speaks of humility and openness, of the willingness to receive rather than demand, to wait rather than grasp. Together, these three actions create a space where the sacred can enter, where the ordinary is transfigured, where the city that is so often torn by conflict becomes, for a night, a place of peace. You think about the history of this gate, about the layers of time that are compressed into these stones. The current structure was built in the 16th century by the Ottomans, but the site itself is much older, with gates standing here in various forms for millennia. Each iteration has witnessed its own dramas, its own moments of joy and sorrow, and each has contributed to the gate's identity as a place of passage and meeting. The Damascus Gate is not just a physical structure. It is a symbol, a marker of the city's complexity and resilience, a reminder that Jerusalem has always been and will always be a place where worlds intersect, where different peoples and faiths come together, sometimes in conflict but also, as tonight, in search of something more. A woman begins to weep quietly, her shoulders shaking, and a friend places an arm around her and holds her. You do not know the source of her grief, but you honor it with your silence, with your recognition that tears, too, are a form of prayer, that sorrow has its place in the vigil alongside joy and hope. The lantern light catches her tears, and they shine like small jewels on her cheeks, and there is something beautiful even in her pain, something that speaks to the depth of human feeling, to the capacity to be wounded and yet to continue, to mourn and yet to believe. Lanterns blaze as merchants pause to listen, and the vigil becomes a space where all emotions are welcome, where nothing must be hidden or suppressed. This is not a place of pretense or performance but of authenticity, and that authenticity is what makes it holy. The sacred is not found in perfection but in honesty, not in the absence of struggle but in the willingness to face it, not in having all the answers but in living the questions with courage and grace. You walk slowly along the edge of the vigil space, your footsteps careful on the uneven stones. You pass by stalls filled with spices, and the scent of cumin and coriander and sumac rises to meet you, earthy and warm. You pass by a display of handmade pottery, the glazes shimmering in the lantern light, and you pause to admire the craftsmanship, the skill that has gone into shaping clay into vessels of beauty. The merchants who have paused their selling have not abandoned their goods, they have simply set them aside for a time, and in doing so they have made room for something else, something intangible but essential. The vigil teaches you that life is not only about doing but also about being, not only about accumulation but also about letting go, not only about speaking but also about listening. These lessons are simple, almost obvious, and yet how easy it is to forget them in the press of daily demands. The vigil offers a chance to remember, to reset, to realign with what matters most, and those who come here tonight carry this remembrance with them when they leave, a small flame kindled in the heart that continues to burn even after the lanterns at the gate have been extinguished. You think about your own prayers, the words and wordless longings that you carry. What have you come seeking tonight? Peace, perhaps, or clarity, or simply a moment of rest? The vigil does not promise to grant your requests, but it promises to hold them, to receive them, to acknowledge that they matter. And sometimes that is enough, to know that your prayers have been heard, even if the answers are not immediate or obvious, even if the journey continues with questions still unanswered and burdens still carried. Lanterns blaze as merchants pause to listen, and you join them in that pausing, in that listening, letting the noise in your mind quiet, letting the worries and fears recede for a moment, letting yourself be present to this place, this night, this gathering of souls. The gate rises above you, solid and enduring, and the stars shine above it, distant and eternal, and you are here between earth and heaven, stone and sky, time and eternity, and it is enough. A young boy runs through the crowd, laughing, chased by a friend, and their joy is infectious, a reminder that life goes on, that children still play even in cities weighted with history and sorrow. The merchants smile at them, indulgent, and let them pass, and the boys disappear into the narrow streets beyond, their voices fading into the night. The vigil absorbs this moment too, folding it into the larger tapestry of prayer and presence, recognizing that holiness is not separate from life but woven into it, that the sacred is found not only in solemn rituals but also in laughter and play and the simple delight of being alive. You move back toward the center of the vigil space and you find a place to stand where the lantern light is brightest. You look around at the faces gathered here, and you see in them a reflection of your own longing, your own hope, your own need. They are strangers, most of them, and yet in this moment they are also companions, fellow travelers on a journey that has no end, only waypoints and moments of rest. The vigil is one such moment, a pause in the journey, a chance to catch your breath and remember why you are walking at all. The man in the white turban raises his hands again, and this time he speaks, his voice low but carrying, a blessing offered in Arabic that you recognize by its cadence and tone even if you do not understand the words. Others echo his words and the blessing ripples through the crowd, a wave of sound and intention that lifts the heart. When he finishes, there is a moment of profound silence and then someone else begins to pray in Hebrew, and then another in a language you do not recognize, and the prayers overlap and interweave, a chorus of voices each singing their own song and yet together creating a harmony that is greater than any individual part. Lanterns blaze as merchants pause to listen, and the listening now includes these prayers, these offerings of the heart, and you feel the power of them, the sincerity, the depth of feeling that animates each word. Prayer is not magic, it does not bend the universe to your will or guarantee outcomes. But it is transformative nonetheless, because it changes the one who prays, opening the heart, softening the spirit, creating space for grace to enter. And when many pray together, even in different languages and traditions, that transformation multiplies, creating a field of blessing that extends beyond the individuals to the community, to the city, to the world. You think about the word vigil, and what it means. A watch kept during the night, a time of wakefulness when others sleep, a deliberate choosing to be present and attentive. The vigil is an act of resistance against the forces that seek to lull us into complacency or despair, a declaration that we will not give in to darkness, that we will keep the light burning, that we will stand our ground and wait for the dawn. And in that waiting, in that standing, we are not passive but active, not resigned but hopeful, not alone but together. The night deepens further and the temperature drops, and yet the lanterns continue to burn, their flames steady and warm. You pull your jacket tighter and huddle a little closer to the light, and you notice that others are doing the same, forming small clusters around each lantern, drawn by the warmth and the glow. The vigil has become a series of small gatherings within the larger gathering, each circle of people creating its own microclimate of connection and care. You join one such circle, and the people make room for you, and you stand with them in silence, sharing the warmth of the lantern and the comfort of companionship. Lanterns blaze as merchants pause to listen, and in this circle, in this moment, you understand something fundamental about human nature. We are made for connection, for community, for the sharing of burdens and joys. We are not meant to walk alone, and when we come together, even with strangers, even for a brief time, we tap into something essential, something that nourishes the soul in ways that solitude cannot. The The vigil offers this gift, this reminder that we are part of a larger whole, that our individual prayers and struggles are connected to the prayers and struggles of countless others, and that in that connection there is strength and hope. You look up at the arch of the gate and you see how the lantern light catches the underside of the stone, illuminating the ridges and hollows, the places where water has worn channels over centuries, the places where moss has taken hold in the damp crevices. The stone is not smooth or perfect. It is textured and weathered, marked by time and use, and that is what makes it beautiful. The gate does not hide its scars. It bears them openly, a testament to survival and endurance. And in that, it is a teacher showing you that your own scars, your own wounds, are not things to be ashamed of but signs of life lived, of battles fought, of love risked and lost and found again. The vigil begins to wind down, not because someone declares it over but because the energy shifts, because people begin to drift away, their prayers offered, their presence given. Some linger, reluctant to leave, savoring the last moments of this quiet time. Others depart quickly, returning to homes and responsibilities, carrying with them the memory of the lanterns and the silence and the sense of having touched something real. You too begin to think about leaving, but you are not in a hurry. You want to hold this moment a little longer, to let it settle into your bones, to carry it with you into the days ahead. Lanterns blaze as merchants pause to listen, and even as the crowd thins, the refrain remains true. The lanterns still burn, the merchants still stand, and the listening continues, a thread that stretches from this night into all the nights that will come, a commitment to remain awake, to remain present, to remain open to the possibility of peace. The vigil is not an end but a beginning, not a solution but a practice, and those who have participated in it tonight will return to their lives changed, even if only in small ways, even if only in the quiet determination to live with more kindness, more patience, more hope. You take one last look around, memorizing the scene, the lanterns hanging from their hooks, the faces illuminated by their glow, the stones of the gate rising into the darkness, the stars above, the city beyond. This is a moment you will carry with you, a memory that will resurface when you need it most, when the world feels too harsh or too loud or too broken. You will remember the lanterns blazing as merchants pause to listen, and you will remember that peace is possible, that people of different faiths and backgrounds can stand together in silence and prayer, and that even in the midst of conflict and suffering, there is beauty and grace and the stubborn persistence of hope. You turn and begin to walk away, your footsteps echoing on the stone, and as you pass under the arch and out into the night, you carry with you the light of the lanterns, not in your hands but in your heart, a small flame that will guide you home and beyond. The vigil at Damascus Gate is over for tonight, but its spirit continues, a living testament to the power of presence, the gift of listening, and the enduring belief that light can overcome darkness, that love can overcome fear, and that peace, though elusive, is always worth seeking. If stories like this one have stirred your heart, we invite you to subscribe and share, so that more seekers and believers around the world can walk with us through Jerusalem's streets and discover the hope that still burns bright at ancient gates. Each week we bring you these moments of faith, light, and peace from the Holy City. Don't miss the next vigil, the next prayer, the next encounter with the sacred in the everyday. Subscribe now and let's keep the lanterns blazing together.